from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina.
Good afternoon. Our top stories on 7. Commuter chaos. A worker takes out power lines at Castledine, forcing the shutdown of rail services on the city's north side. We have the latest. Just one day of campaigning left before Americans vote. The shock poll putting Kamala Harris ahead in a Republican stronghold. The Baggaley brothers being sentenced over a $200 million cocaine importation attempt. And Spaniards hurl mud and insults at their king and queen. What has gotten them so upset? Good afternoon, and we are beginning with a developing story about the public transport system on Brisbane's north side, which has been thrown into chaos today after a truck driver towing a trailer took out power lines at a level crossing in Castledine. Let's bring in our reporter Lawrence Webcke, who's there. Lawrence, any idea when train services will be restored?
Well, as you can see behind me, workers at this level crossing here at Beams Road at Castledine are starting to pack down slowly. They're testing out the level crossing at the moment, and the official word from Queensland Rail is that services should be up and running within the next half hour. Now, when this truck did hit the power lines this morning while towing that trailer just before 5 a.m, it caused commuter chaos. As you said earlier, there was many commuters who were on the roads and on rail replacement buses instead of being on trains. Now, those customers that were affected were between Northgate and Peachtree Station, and they were on the Redcliffe Peninsula, the Caboolture line and also the Sunshine Coastline. The delays were up to 30 minutes on the roads, and Queensland Rail says they expect that to continue into the night. Here's what they had to say a little earlier.
If you've got alternative transport, take it, but if you can't, there will be rail replacement buses and the network will be running. It just won't be as smooth as it normally is.
And as you heard there, those rail replacement buses will be still running tonight. But the main message from Queensland Rail is for truck and freight drivers. They want to make sure that those drivers know what their clearance heights are to avoid another incident like this. We'll have more on this developing story in the news at 6.
Lawrence Webcke there at Castledine. We have some breaking news now, and you are looking at live pictures of a fire in Yatala. At least 7 crews are on scene with 8 fire engines on the way. A number of semi-trailers are well involved in the blaze, and scientific crews have been called in to assess what is in the trucks. There is a large volume of black smoke, as you can see. Police are evacuating the surrounding area, and people are being advised to close their windows and doors. To some more breaking news, and a man is in custody after gunshots rang out across Brussels today. Police say they were called in around noon to reports of a man threatening a woman with a firearm. The shots were apparently fired into the air. The man fled into nearby bushland but was tracked down by police. The woman is assisting police with their inquiries. A Supreme Court judge is right now handing down sentences for former Olympic kayaker Nathan Baggaley and his brother Drew for their roles in a $200 million cocaine importation plot. As reporter Jacqueline Robson explains, their original convictions were overturned on appeal, but rather than face another trial, they both pleaded guilty to drugs charges.
Well, lawyers for the Olympic silver medalist and his brother have negotiated a change to the criminal responsibility the brothers face over their role in a multi-million-dollar cocaine import bust in 2018. Former Olympic kayaking silver medalist Nathan Baggaley and his younger brother Drew made shock admissions to charges of attempting to import a commercial quantity of a border-controlled drug. This was after they'd been found guilty by a Supreme Court jury in 2021 and were each sentenced to more than 20 years jail. Then their convictions were set aside on appeal. Drew Baggaley's lawyer today telling the court the then 36-year-old had a reckless state of mind and the brothers weren't fully aware of the contents of the 30 packages they were collecting. In 2018, Nathan bought the inflatable dinghy and fitted it with a positioning system. Drew and another man, Andrew Draper, then used it to rendezvous with a foreign freighter hundreds of kilometres off the Queensland coast. Border Patrol intercepted the dinghy and, during a chase at sea, Drew threw the packages overboard before they were arrested on August 1 off Byron Bay. Police recovered 652 kilograms of the drug with a street value of more than $200 million. The brothers have spent more than half a decade behind bars, which will be taken into account during sentencing.
The US is now less than 36 hours away from going to the polls to decide the next president of the United States. As the candidates barnstorm the crucial swing states, Donald Trump told supporters he wouldn't mind if the press was shot at, while Kamala Harris promised a fresh start. Correspondent Tim Lester reports.
Donald Trump made his way here to small-town Kinston in central North Carolina today for one of his many pre-election rallies. As he came, new polling in the rural state of Iowa suggests his grip on rural and small-town America may not be as strong as many had thought. It shows in a state where he held a commanding lead just several months ago, Kamala Harris now leads by the narrowest of margins.
They just announced a fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election, that I'm 3 points down. I'm not down in Iowa.
Not even Democrats believe they're about to win Iowa, but they do say this could be a sign that some of the 5% or so of the American electorate who hadn't decided up until recently may have moved firmly towards Kamala Harris, and that might affect the vote in some of the real battleground states nearby. This as Donald Trump ramped up his violence rhetoric at a campaign rally earlier in Pennsylvania.
I have a piece of glass over here, and I have this piece of glass here. But all we have really over here is the fake news, right? To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news, and I don't mind that so much.
The Trump message growing darker the closer he gets to Election Day, a contrast to the Democrat Kamala Harris, who's been campaigning today in Michigan.
I am feeling great. I am looking forward to these next 48 hours to continue to talk with the voters. So my ballot is on its way to California, and I'm going to trust the system that it will arrive there.
Most major polls have the two candidates way too close to make any confident predictions about the outcome of the election. Already, more than 74 million Americans have voted out of a likely total of 150 to 160 million.
And Seven's live coverage of the US presidential election count begins at 10:30 for Queensland on Wednesday morning. Closer to home, and David Crisafulli is holding his first cabinet meeting since the LNP's election win. Let's bring in our state political editor, Marlena Webcke now. And Marlena, this is expected to be a marathon meeting.
Yeah, Katrina, I'm told they could go on for hours. The meeting started at 1 o'clock on level 40 at 1 William Street. David Crisafulli sitting down with his 18 ministers. They've been told they have a big job ahead. They were sworn in on Friday afternoon and told to do their homework over the weekend ahead of today's meeting. They'll be focusing on the core issues the LNP took to the election, such as youth crime and new laws for tougher penalties, the health crisis, housing, Olympics planning, as well as the shake-up of the public service, where the Premier has promised no job cuts. Sticking to budgets will certainly be up for discussion, as the new government revealed Labor's Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro project was going to cost more than double the amount forecast.
It's important that in here we do what we say we were going to do and we fulfil that, and we keep the focus on those promises that we made Queenslanders before the election. And it's important that this is the body that discusses that policy.
We can reveal today, through the detailed analytical report, that the actual cost, and with Treasury forecast, the actual costs of Labor's hydro hoax is over $36 billion. Stephen Miles and Cameron Dick should have, could have, and they knew the cost of this project. And they deliberately hid it from Queenslanders.
Now, it comes after the Premier visited the community of Youngalla west of Mackay yesterday to reiterate his commitment to axing the project and invite landholders to start the process of buying back their properties. We heard from the former Premier and now opposition leader Stephen Miles a short time ago here at Parliament. He's denied hiding anything. He says that $36 billion figure wasn't available when Labor was in power. I'll have more on this story at 6 o'clock. Katrina?
Marlena Webcke at State Parliament. Westpac has posted a $7 billion full-year profit, a 3% decline on last year. The bank also announced a $1 billion increase to its shares buyback program. Business editor Amelia Brace breaks down the numbers.
Australia's second largest mortgage lender is feeling the crunch of competition. Westpac's full-year profit came in slightly below analyst expectations, falling 3% to $7 billion. The slide in profits is due to a competitive mortgage market, with borrowers shopping around for a better deal, putting pressure on its margins. Westpac CEO Peter King acknowledged that customers are struggling, with more than 47,000 seeking hardship arrangements to pay their mortgages, most needing help for about 3 months. Despite that, he said the economy was showing positive signs.
We've seen consumer sentiment has increased in the last survey. We've seen inflation on a headline basis in the band, on an underlying basis heading towards the RBA's band.
Today's results come on the eve of the next Reserve Bank decision on interest rates. Westpac does not think we'll see any movement tomorrow. In fact, all of the big four banks don't predict a cut until February. We'll find out if the RBA board agrees tomorrow afternoon.
Teenage sprinter Gout Gout has again shown why he's a force to be reckoned with on the athletics world stage. Over the weekend, he put in a blistering run at the All Schools Queensland Track and Field Championships. The 16-year-old posting an astonishing 20.29 seconds in the heats of the 200 metres. Now, to put that in context, that is 0.01 of a second faster than Usain Bolt's record when he was the same age. It was a personal best and the fastest time set by an Aussie in 31 years. Well, large parts of southern Queensland are in the grips of a severe heat wave with temperatures hitting the mid-40s. Let's bring in Michelle Jensen with the weather now.
Katrina, from now, Ipswich and Gatton are in that heatwave warning zone. And this is how temperatures looked in Queensland today. The Maroon State turned pink and red with temperatures in the 30s. Only areas right along the coast stayed yellow or orange, representing figures in the 20s. And if we skip forward to Wednesday, brown blobs start to appear where maximums reach the 40s. Birdsville is expected to be the hottest place in Queensland with 45 degrees tomorrow and 44 on Wednesday. In the southeast, the heat is expected to peak on Friday with 39 degrees in Gatton. A trough is pushing hot air from the centre of Australia into Queensland. Cooler air will come behind it, but the trough is moving slowly and it could be followed by another one. So a cooler change isn't expected until at least the weekend. Katrina, I'll be back soon with the forecast. Lots of tops in the 30s this week.
Oh, OK. Thank you, Michelle. Well, still to come, a Gold Coast business under fire after posting a fake break-in on social media. Why did they do it? Anger boils over in Spain as flood victims vent their frustrations at the King and Queen. Houses wrecked. A tornado sweeps through Oklahoma City, leaving a trail of destruction. A Gold Coast store is coming under fire from police after posting a staged robbery on social media. Webcke put this online this morning, showing a thief stealing their frozen yogurt. In the caption, it requested help from members of the public to identify the culprit.
It could be seen as, a bit of fun, but in the back end, we've got to investigate this stuff, and I really think that we should be concentrating on legitimate crime.
Webcke's PR team told 7 News it's a campaign for an upcoming product launch. The King and Queen of Spain have been pelted with mud and abuse during a visit to the flood disaster zone. An attempt to calm and console locals backfired as survivors raged over the response to the disaster that's killed at least 217. Ben Downey reports.
This is an outburst that felt inevitable. One of the unifying sentiments inside the flood zone is one of anger as well as abandonment at authorities. King Felipe came to express sympathy and was met by an angry mob shouting murderer, shame and get out as he arrived nearly a week after the floods. Queen Letizia left by Porter crying and in shock with mud on her face. It's the town most devastated by the disaster Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez describes as the European continent's worst flood in a century. He was also chased out of the town, with residents hurling mud and debris at his convoy. Most residents didn't receive alerts until hours after floodwaters had destroyed their homes and killed their loved ones. Much of the anger is also directed at Valencian President Carlos Mazón, after he posed for tourism photo ops instead of chairing disaster meetings and issuing alerts the day of the disaster. With the death toll now passing 200 people, anger is also being fueled by the fact it's volunteers, not the military or authorities, leading the recovery response.
Well, in the US, almost 40 homes and buildings have been destroyed and another 100 have been damaged after a tornado swept across parts of Oklahoma City in the early hours of Sunday morning. Fortunately, no one was killed, but 6 people have been taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Around 30,000 homes are without power. The tornado was one of several to hit the state yesterday. A woman has been arrested after a daring protest at a university in Iran. She stripped down to her underwear after reportedly being stopped by campus police for not wearing a headscarf. Security forces surrounded her and bundled her into a car. Local media report she was taken to a police station before being transferred to a psychiatric centre. A university spokesperson claimed on Twitter X that she had a mental disorder. And Mariah Carey has been immortalised in wax. She came face to face with her likeness at its official unveiling at Madame Tussauds in New York City. The dress is inspired by Marilyn Monroe and the jewellery is Mariah's own. She described the experience as surreal.
Is my new best friend.
Well, it took 20 artists just over 9 months to create the likeness. Coming up, age is no barrier to being a champion. The couple in their 90s going for gold at the Pan Pac Masters. And in sport, the Broncos enter a world of pain as the Michael Maguire era officially gets underway. Interstate travellers are cruising into Victoria for tomorrow's Melbourne Cup. An astonishing 1 in 10 visitors to Flemington will have arrived for the big race by boat. Bethan Yeoman has more.
It's all aboard the Melbourne Cup cruise. Almost 3,000 Sydney-siders have sailed into the city, ready for the race that stops a nation. The 6-day cruise offers fashions at sea, fascinator making, Q&As with champion jockeys, and of course, a ticket to the big day. Another 2 cruise ships will arrive here at Port Melbourne tomorrow morning, making up a total of more than 10% of all Cup attendees.
But we bring that kind of Melbourne Cup atmosphere to the ship the second that you embark in Brisbane or Sydney, and we keep that going on the build-up right the way over to Melbourne for the Cup.
They brought their outfits into us and their matching colours, a lot of reds, pinks, metallics, and they're coming away with coordinated now outfits to wear on Tuesday.
Melbourne Cup Day is one day that brings goosebumps back to my body, obviously being lucky enough to win 2 of them in 83 and 97, but a fantastic day. A lot of people on the cruise are going for their first time.
Earlier today, 1,000 lucky racing fans gathered at Greenvale for the Living Legends event, a substitute for the Melbourne Cup parade, which was cancelled for the 2nd year running due to roadworks in the city. Attendees were given the opportunity to feed some of the champion horses and pose with the $750,000 trophy, which is now making its way back to Flemington ahead of the $8 million race.
A couple from the Gold Coast hinterlands with a combined age of 183 are taking on lawn bowling at the Pan Pacific Masters Games. Aged 90 and 93, the Hicksons travelled 60 kilometres to get the family together, playing with their son and daughter-in-law.
We make them play the third and the skip because then they're responsible then for not getting the last bowl in and winning.
Also gearing up for the Pan Pacific Masters Games is Gold Coast Mayor Tom Tate, vying for a title in weightlifting. Good on you, Tom Tate. Let's have a quick look at today's sport now with Webby.
Thanks, Katrina. Hello, everyone. The Michael Maguire era of the Broncos has begun in brutal fashion. The new coach putting his squad through 2 hours of torture and 31-degree heat at Red Hill. Payne Haas led a star-studded rehab group alongside Selwyn Cobbo, who remains off contract.
It's nice to see him applying himself, and he was in real good spirits this morning when I spoke to him. All those players that you discussed are ones that we'd like to hang on to and keep here and keep growing as a Bronco.
The rest of the squad returns to training in a fortnight. The International Summer of Cricket is underway, with Pat Cummins sending Pakistan into bat in the first one-dayer in front of a small MCG crowd. Coldplay's Chris Martin settled in to watch a hot opening spell from Mitchell Starc, Syme and Abdullah. Gone, it was 2 for 24.
Oh, there's some noise. It's brushed the glove or bat.
That left Pakistan relying on the mercurial Babar Azam, who got going with boundaries off Cummins and Starc. But Adam Zampa came on and took the big wicket. Babar for 37. They're 7 for 167 after 39 overs. There are a few tense moments for the team of Aussie MotoGP ace Jack Miller. Somehow he's okay after this.
Damage for big contact. Big crash further back. A real first corner melee here.
The Aussie's head hit another bike's tyre in the huge Malaysian Grand Prix pile-up. Francesco Bagnaia kept the title race alive. He trails Jorge Martin by 24 points heading into the final round. Thankfully, he was okay. Plenty more sport at 6.
Yeah, wild stuff. Thanks, Webby. Now to Amanda on the Gold Coast. Good afternoon, Amanda. What have you got coming up in the 5:30 bulletin this evening?
Good afternoon, Katrina. The council and police have both put out a warning about a growing schoolies scandal. There are fears barely legal boys are being targeted. We have a report at 5:30. Also, turf in tip-top shape. The Melbourne Cup frenzy begins. Plus, a firework thrown into a public toilet, completely destroying it. Got the details, Katrina. We'll have that for you as well at 5:30.
That's an odd story, but thank you, Amanda. Our Gold Coast viewers are off to the chase now. Then join Amanda and Steve for your local news at 5:30 and Max and Sarah at 6 o'clock. For the rest of Queensland, the US presidential election balanced on a knife's edge. We explain where and how the keys to the White House are decided. Coldplay's Chris Martin takes a plunge on stage in Melbourne. And later, after the weather, the stars of musical movie Wicked cast their spell over the land of Oz.
Live from Brisbane, 7 News with Katrina Blowers.
Good afternoon. The top stories we're following this afternoon, and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have just one full day of campaigning left before Americans cast their votes. Polls show the candidates neck and neck. Both will focus their final efforts in crucial swing states. Fire crews are on the scene of a blaze at a container self-storage facility at Yatala. A number of trucks are alight. There are concerns about what's in the containers that could potentially be toxic. New Premier David Crisafulli is holding a marathon first cabinet meeting this afternoon. On the agenda, new youth crime laws, the health crisis, housing, Olympics planning and a shake-up of the public service. Commuters on Brisbane's north side are being advised that if they have alternate transport this afternoon, take it. It comes after a truck towing a trailer took out power lines this morning at a rail crossing on Beams Road at Castledine. Queensland Rail immediately switched off the power, knocking out the Caboolture, Redcliffe Peninsula and Sunshine Coast lines. Buses are operating in their place. Queensland Rail says work to restore services is continuing, but it may still be some hours away. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have just one full day of campaigning left before Americans go to the polls. Both will focus their final efforts on crucial swing states, which will almost certainly decide who wins the White House.
As they head into the final hours of this campaign, both sides doing everything they can to energize their supporters, laser focused on turning out the vote. Vice President Harris with her last rally in Michigan tonight. But tomorrow, going all in on must-win Pennsylvania with 3 stops there, ending with a star-studded final rally in Philadelphia. Today, posting a video urging people to vote and showing her absentee ballot.
So make sure you fill out your ballot. I did mine. I'm going to put it in the mail.
Harris using an optimistic closing message, trying to show a contrast with her opponent.
I see an incredible number of our young people, our young leaders. Oh, it would inspire you to see how they are organizing for change. How you doing?
Releasing this final closing ad, a 2-minute message aimed at undecided voters watching Sunday afternoon pro football.
We see in our fellow Americans neighbors, not enemies.
The Trump campaign says their final stops are data-driven, targeting locations they believe they can drive supporter turnout. Former President Trump will spend tomorrow across 3 states, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and his final stop, Grand Rapids, Michigan, at midnight, where he's ended each of his previous presidential campaigns.
So we got to get our country straightened out, or we're not going to have a country. All right, that's all. And you have a chance in 2 days. And if you don't vote, you're stupid. You're stupid.
Well, what's important about the swing states is the number of electoral college votes each is worth. It is a wildly different electoral system to our own, as foreign editor Hugh Whitfield explains.
When Americans head to the polls on November 5th, they won't actually be voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. Instead, they'll be voting for a series of electors that make up the Electoral College. Today, there are 538 electors, and each state is given a number of these based roughly on their population, combining their allocation of Congress seats in the House and Senate. In order to win the presidency, a candidate must secure a majority of these electors, totalling 270 votes in the Electoral College. In most US states, these electors are awarded to the candidate that wins the most votes. For example, in 2016, all 29 of Florida's Electoral College votes were awarded to Donald Trump, despite Hillary Clinton securing nearly 48% of the vote in that state, which is why a candidate can win the national vote while losing the Electoral College. The exceptions to this rule are Nebraska and Maine, who award their electors based on each district's vote. While all 50 states are in play each election, just a handful typically decide the outcome. And in 2024, the election will likely come down to just 7 swing states: Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Whichever candidate manages to win over more voters in these battlegrounds will likely become the next President of the United States of America. Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
And 7's live coverage of the US presidential election count begins at 10:30 on Wednesday morning. All right, we have some breaking news now, and a judge has just delivered sentences for former Olympic kayaker Nathan Baggaley and his brother Drew for their roles in a $200 million cocaine importation plot. Drew has been given 15 years jail, while Nathan received 13 years. With time already served, both are eligible for parole from today. They both pleaded guilty of drugs charges after their initial convictions were set aside on appeal. We'll have a full report in the news tonight at 6. Hopes of finding an 11-year-old boy alive are fading almost 24 hours after he was swept out to sea on the New South Wales Central Coast. Emergency crews received the alert at the entrance around 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. It's believed he'd been trying to cross the channel with his father and 3 younger brothers when he was caught by a powerful current.
The family are very distraught, and they're being well supported by our family liaison officer, chaplains, and we'll assist them as much as we can moving forward.
A land, air and sea search has so far failed to find the boy. Federal politicians are back in Canberra for the first time since the flight perks scandal broke. As Rob Scott reports from Parliament, the issue has dominated question time.
Rather than dwelling on this topic, the Prime Minister would very much like to be talking about the plan he announced yesterday to slash 20% off all student debt. Meeting with university and TAFE students here at Parliament House this afternoon, students who are set to save thousands as a result of the policy.
It'll make such a huge difference, yeah. Have any of you worked out how much you'll save from this?
$7 grand for me.
$7,000.
$7,000, which is going to make my life a bit easier, hopefully.
Great. Yeah, at a time when you need it, when you're trying to get yourself settled and starting your working life.
That media opportunity clearly arranged to try to generate another day of coverage for the policy, which the government says will make life easier for about 3 million young Australians. But the flight upgrade scandal was always going to suck the oxygen out of the political debate, with the number of MPs handing back memberships to the Qantas Chairman's Lounge growing by the day.
I think you'll see when you look in the next 28 days at the register of interest, there'll be quite a few people who will be handing back their membership to airline lounges.
I've been calling on the airlines to stop all upgrades for politicians, because I think this is in fact affecting the public trust in politicians, and that's really important.
Greens leader Adam Bant, who is still a member of the Qantas Chairman's Lounge, says he's open to banning all politicians from asking for and receiving flight upgrades for personal travel.
The lucky toddler who knew exactly what to do when a brown snake paid a visit. A trial which is changing the lives of smokers in the southeast set to expand. A toddler has survived being attacked by a deadly eastern brown snake in his Adelaide backyard. The 2-year-old, who's still learning to talk, managed to alert his mum, who was inside doing the laundry.
And then he comes running to the door saying a snake bit him. To have that thought of my son is going to die, there's no words to describe that.
Fortunately, Ezra received a dry bite, which means no venom was injected. Coldplay frontman Chris Martin has suffered little more than a bruised ego after falling through a trapdoor on stage in Melbourne. The sold-out crowd gasped at the tumble, which was freakishly similar to another recent mishap. Rochelle Brown has the details.
You're about to see the moment Coldplay star Chris Martin fell through the stage while performing in Melbourne. The 47-year-old was walking backwards, talking to the audience, when he suddenly fell through a trapdoor at Marvel Stadium.
That's not planned. Thank you for catching me.
A production staff member was able to catch him as he fell, and he pushed on with the final Melbourne show.
Thank you, guys. Holy shit. That was nearly a YouTube moment. Yeah, I'm okay, thank you, I'm okay.
If you are dealing with a performer like Chris Martin, who's very loose, who wanders the stage, he's very kind of free flow, and even walks backwards, as he was here, you can't afford to have an open trapdoor. It's just not a risk you can take.
It comes just weeks after Olivia Rodrigo took a tumble on stage at a different Melbourne stadium.
Oh my God, that was fun, I'm okay. Sometimes there's just a hole in the stage.
It marks the second hurdle for Coldplay after Guy Berryman fell ill and failed to take the stage for night one of the Music of the Spheres tour.
Our beautiful bass player Guy is very, very sick. I'm sorry for all of you guys down here who are waiting to see Guy. He's not going to be able to play today.
The band will continue their tour with 4 more shows in Sydney. Their final performance of the year will be in New Zealand.
A trial which has changed the lives of smokers in the southeast is set to expand. As Lawrence Jeffcoat explains, free lung screenings will be accessible for those who may not have previously been considered high risk.
Good afternoon. Thousands of Queenslanders from today will be eligible for life-changing free CT scans for early lung cancer detection. For more now, I'm joined by Dr Kwong Fong from the Prince Charles Hospital. Doctor, thanks for joining us on the afternoon news. Just who is eligible for this CT scan trial now?
Oh, we would like to invite people who had risk of lung cancer. In this trial, we're looking at 3 different groups. Our First Nations community, people who live in rural and remote Australia, and also people who are light or never smokers.
So those passive smokers too, people who may have gone out to bars where there's a lot of smoke in their past. Can you talk to me a bit about how many people are coming and presenting with those symptoms who have never smoked before?
Yes, that's an important question. Passive smoking, even if you don't smoke, you may be exposed to passive smoking, which is important to avoid. We know now in Australia that 1 in 10 men and 3 in 10 women who have lung cancer have never actively smoked.
And how big is lung cancer in terms of the types of cancer that we're seeing in Australia now?
Lung cancer is huge. It is the biggest cause of cancer deaths around the world and in Australia. We expect about 14,000 people to be diagnosed each year with lung cancer.
And how life-changing has it been for those heavy smokers that you've already seen come through?
Well, it's been a privilege to work with people who volunteer for our studies, and we've found a number of cancers and they've been cured. So for them, it's a life-changing intervention, and we know that lung cancer screening can save lives.
And we will hear from one of those cancer survivors tonight in the news at 6.
All right, thank you, Lawrence. Well, the Australian share market has started the week on a positive note. Here's James Tao from ING Bank.
Good afternoon. The Aussie market has started the week on a high with the ASX 200 snapping a 3-day losing streak. The index today up about 45 points, or just over 0.5%. And banks were a major support today. We had the big four or higher. Westpac up around 1% following the release of its profit results. A $7 billion profit for the year was slightly ahead of analyst expectations, and the stock actually opened down about 2.5%, but managed to overturn that throughout the day. There was some weakness from the mining sector, though. We had the major miners or lower mineral resources today, one of the worst, down about 9%. There was an announcement from the company that its managing director and founder, Chris Ellison, will be stepping aside within the next 18 months. And the Aussie dollar, it's a little firmer as well against a weaker US dollar. It's now buying about 66.1 US cents.
Coming up, the blockbuster musical that's made the move from stage to screen. The stars of Wicked dazzle on the yellow brick road. And it has been a hot day. This is a look at Brisbane right now, where it's currently 28 degrees. Michelle has the forecast next. Good afternoon, you're watching 7 News. Checking the weather now, and today marks the start of a warm run in Brisbane. It was 30 degrees by 11:15, and as that blue line shows, it felt even hotter, more like 33 degrees. Around the southeast, Toowoomba was 7 degrees above average with a top of 33. Ipswich hit 35, and it was another warm night on the Gold Coast with 21 to 29 degrees today. On the satellite, here is what's causing the warmer temperatures. A trough moved into the far corner of Queensland today, and that's sending hot air ahead of it and creating severe heatwave conditions in the southwest. Tomorrow, the trough will continue drifting across southern parts of the state and reaching the southeast there, where some wet weather could develop. Around the country tomorrow, a shower or two in Perth and Adelaide, a cloudy 27 degrees for Canberra, looking sunny in Melbourne, and a possible shower for Sydney with a top of 23. To North Queensland, identical forecasts here again for Cairns and Townsville, mostly sunny with 22 to 33 degrees tomorrow and a sunny 31 for Mackay. Further south, temperatures will be above average again, with Longreach getting up to 41 degrees, 35 in Gympie. And tomorrow also brings the risk of thunderstorms. Isolated severe storms are possible along the southern border ranges around the scenic rim south of Boona. In the southeast, there's also the chance of a thunderstorm, most likely around Beaudesert and Ipswich. And tomorrow is looking warmer again with a top of 32 degrees in Brisbane, 31 on the Gold Coast, 36 in Ipswich. And Katrina, the worst of the heat is yet to come. We'll be back with the full forecast at 6. That's going to be hot for all the fashions on the field. Melbourne Cup tomorrow.
Important for you.
And everyone else. Thank you, Michelle. Well, it was the biggest movie premiere of the year. One of Sydney's busiest streets transformed into the yellow brick road to welcome the cast of Wicked. The 6 leading stars kicking off a global press tour in Australia.
Munchkinland shuts down Market Street in Sydney, the long-running Broadway stage musical, now a massive Hollywood blockbuster. The untold story of Oz, where 2 young women meet as students at Shiz University before becoming Glinda the Good and the Wicked Witch of the West.
It feels really beautiful to work on something that you are passionate about and work on something where the message resonates on every page.
Being here with everyone and even just getting off the plane with everybody and just being like, here we go. It's all happening after such a long time.
As well as witches, munchkins and talking animals, there's Fiero, a carefree prince.
Dancing through life, mindless and careless.
I'm Fiero.
Oh, Oz.
The film is so fantastic, but I feel in your part there's a kind of a little bit of a flavour of
Backstreet Boys, Nick Carter flavour.
How did you've gone straight to my mood board. It was Justin Timberlake, sort of, yeah.
The heart of the story, Elphaba and Glinda, who forge an unbreakable bond, even as their destinies lead them down different paths.
We're very choked up. Yeah. Please don't make fun of us. Please calm down. I already know. No, it's not.
Everyone here like this and everyone's dressed up in the pink and green. It's really wonderful.
My mom came at 6 in the morning to scope it out. And
your mom came here?
Oh yes, she came here and she like somehow got through the barrier. I think she was like, I'm Glinda's mom or something, and then she came in and she was sending pictures of all the fans who have been like here since last night.
5 a.m. People have been here since 5 a.m.
I
this
know.
morning.
Some people slept over.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It's just like, it's too much.
We just didn't expect this.
There's chemistry and then there's you two, which seems like such a beautiful friendship too.
Yeah. That's it.
That's really it.
That's really it. I think we were just trying to be as truthful and as honest as we possibly could with these women, these wonderful ladies that we got to play, and I hope that's what happens.
And that's the news for Monday. Have a great night.
The 7 News app will give you the news you want. Download now.